Events like this, it's also about meeting each other, sharing information and experiences. Thank you, Mudit, from coming all the way from Jaipur, taking a very early morning flight. I know Jaipur Goa flight is bad flight, and we have somebody from Indigo here. We have been part of innovation ecosystem in India for a while, and we have seen the way innovation in India has grown. According to me, it has skewed where we are talking only about certain type of innovation, right? Out of the 100 unicorns, we have certain type of startups which are unicorn, right? But I think India has a great opportunity to leapfrog in doing inclusive innovation. And what I mean by inclusive is it should include every strata of society. It should include every problem which we are facing. I think innovation in India is mostly consumer-driven innovation. And that's why this topic that we are going to talk about is how can, first thing is the bodies which you represent, what kind of inclusive innovation ecosystem you are building, and how do you see the way forward. With that,
Thank you, Anish. Pleasure to be here. I think the inclusive innovation question has two sides, both in terms of the consumer and the innovator. And I think the first decade or so, all of us think about the startup movement in India having started somewhere around 2012 when you and I started buying books of Flipkart. And then about 14, 15 when you started seeing these large numbers of funding and then the Startup India movement in 16. This last decade was basically, in a way, bringing in efficiency to the market. And that has been in some ways inclusive because at least let's think about companies like Amazon or Flipkart, Mitra, which took e-commerce to the villages, actually opened access to new kinds of products, but that was still existing products. I believe strongly now that we are the inflection point of going from marketplaces, e-commerce startups, which are mostly bringing in new access or efficiencies in the market, supply chain efficiencies, to a point where it will now be dependent on deep tech. And deep tech is always very context specific, very user specific. And the applications in health, agriculture, defense, rural technologies, these will require the innovator to start thinking of what the user is. And that change is happening. I think the COVID pandemic, for all that we lost, also brought about a realization in people's daily lives of the importance of small things in whether it is ventilation in large buildings or it is the food that they consume or the food that can give you immunity from some viruses and variants. That kind of a realization is now spurring more investment. Investment in both two ways, both personal investment in terms of time for innovation and investments from investors who are looking at new opportunities going beyond e-commerce. And I don't want to beat upon e-commerce because they did a very good job of digitalizing innovation, but the inflection now is to solve harder problems. And that solving of harder problems, I believe, will not be limited to our stereotypical IITian, typical male, mostly from a city, people like us, right, ALUs, solving problems. It will, by definition, require to be more inclusive by getting innovation on by getting inclusion on the other side as well, which is go deeper into non-engineering skills, go deeper into STEM, I mean beyond STEM colleges, universities, attract innovators from all walks of life. Some incubators in the system have tried that. I can give a shout out to Banasali. I don't know if somebody is from Banasali here. They've done a very good job in North, in Hyderabad. We have Elite and Access Libraries, doing very interesting roles there. Going into rural areas, getting self-help groups and foundation organizations to start thinking of some very interesting technologies coming out of those areas. And that kind of innovation is relevant both for the user side and for the innovator, for the supply side. And I think that revolution is being driven by realization of need and confidence, which I think has come in much faster than we would have expected when Startup India was being designed in 2015, which is a lot more faith, and shows like Shark Tank had a very big role to play there. A faith that if I, as a person, try and build a company, try and build a product, there will be consumers and there will be investors to back it. I think that is the shift that India has seen in this last 1 decade, which will hold us in very good state in the next decade. And I'm very confident that the trends are merging or are converging towards very interesting innovation, both for the supply and
Yeah, totally agree with the two factors which Mudit mentioned that there is requirement of inclusiveness in both the sides, the innovator and the consumer, right? And for the fact, like what AIM has been doing so far with the new launch of the VIP program, which should be a part of as well, right? How do you bring in that dissemination of the knowledge of becoming an entrepreneur or design thinking, I'd say, the first module of it, converting that into different languages over there. How do you get that all in for the innovators to channel their thoughts and to get a clarity on it? That is one thing, right? And the second part again, we already mentioned it from the consumer side of it, right? So as a government's role, they have been doing their part. What we're seeing on the field now with all the success stories which are coming out, the unicorns and everyone, it's a good energy which is there, right? And all they got is not to stop. Keep funneling in more and more and try to bring in each and every sector to each and every level of different types of people. Be an innovator. When we have like AICs like right, we have in tier ones and tier twos as well, some are in tier threes as well. And that's where the concept of ACICs came up. Okay, fine, let's go to tier two and tier three. Now, even any of the ministries, any of the spokesperson from them, they would realize that most of the innovations are coming from tier 2, tier 3, right? So how do we bring them in? Give them the platform, give them the opportunity over there. There's a farmer who's creating a technology or something of its own benefit, but it could be leveraged by a farmer in Canada as well, right? So you need a platform to bring it up. Otherwise, it stays over in the silo, right? So that is coming up as well. And with the whole VIP program, which we're going to soon graduate the first batch or the first cohort of it, right? It's a testimony that we find that language is not a barrier to become an entrepreneur, right? You just with the information over there and you leverage the best out of it. The assimilation of it is going to be the next challenge, right? Because innovation doesn't really have a language, right? So that's going to be the next level for us. And ultimately, the ecosystem is thriving. We mentioned the Shark Tank as well, right? You have a startup Horses table as well. And I casually have conversations with my friends as well that, okay, fine, what has Shark Tank done to the country? It has been the right triggers, right? That's what the job is, like, give the right triggers, give the topic for people to talk about, and be comfortable to be talking about it, right? That's what brings in inclusiveness. Although, yeah, it's going to take another, let's say, 5 years to really realize that the true potential of these kind of triggers, but they haven't made. That's it. Yeah.
So you guys might be seeing me twitch on my chair, but it's because I have a very bad back pain. It's not that I'm rushing to have beer there. So I mean, if you're misinterpreting my gestures on the chair. So taking your point, Anish, and as you mentioned about innovators' inclusivity, right? Possibly this panel is not the right panel to talk about this. And my question is, how do we include inclusivity women founders, right? Women entrepreneurs. You mentioned Shark Tank. Shark Tank, only 6% women founders actually got the money, and that is normally the case. So like I said, possibly the wrong panel to talk about it. But what's your view as another gender, and how do we make women part of this innovation ecosystem more? Maybe a couple of thoughts.
if I had the answer, I would have acted on it. I think having people from different walks of life in decision making is very important. The kind of programs, again, that I mentioned between ALE, PLC, Bhartiya, maybe there are a few others which I don't recall offhand, did a very good job of going to where the potential innovators could be, rather than expecting them to come and knock on your doors. So that is a very important strategy. I mean, just going back to these three examples I'm talking about, self-help groups, farmer producer organizations. We don't think of them only as people who are farmers, but they have children. who may not have the confidence or the access to come to your innovation center. And sometimes that indirect impact is way more than what were expecting going to that kind of a location. So that kind of an outreach makes a huge difference. Even Shark Tank or Horses Stadium is limited to a small group of people, small by Indian standards, but not global standards, who understand that language, understand partly English mostly, or has terms that we don't normally use in our real life evaluation to these things. A lot of that will require to be disassembled for that space. And I think we have done a disservice to a lot of people by having this entire startup system also in a language which is not our original language. So the work that AIM is now doing to take entrepreneurship to local languages will have a role to play. So not just in gender, but in terms of different kinds of education backgrounds and kinds of exposures. Finally, I think we have a very large network of colleges which is still outside the privileged IITs and the top institutes. And there's a fair amount of work to be done there to break down the seemingly complicated or seemingly magical art of entrepreneurship into a science. Whether you look at the discipline entrepreneurship concept by Bill Ollett, or you look at lean model canvases, there are ways of demystifying this entire entrepreneurship story. And I think that's what incubators should be doing very intensively, just